Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. This is Justin from Savision. I got the pleasure of co-hosting this webinar about cloud adoption with our esteemed colleague and Microsoft MVP Alessandro Cardoso. Thank you for joining. There's no safety precautions we need to talk about. Obviously, if you have any questions or you'd like to raise your hand or have any notes or comments that you'd like to share throughout the presentation, please feel free to use the WebEx chat window and the Q&A window. That will be monitored, obviously, by our marketing team and put forward to both myself and Alessandro. So for those of you who don't know Savision, we are the company behind a few solutions that work within System Center, namely Live Maps and Cloud Reporter. My name is Justin Borchter. You will be forgiven if you cannot remember my surname. That's okay. I will be co-presenting with Alessandro this presentation. And we will be recording it for future filming and sharing on our webpage. So if there's anything you've missed, please feel free to get hold of it. I'm the Savision's technical sales manager for EMEA, and I have the pleasure of co-hosting with Alessandro, who is very cleverly a blogger for Microsoft with his own blog called cloudtidings.com, and to follow on Twitter, an author and speaker in key events and roundtables across Australia and New Zealand. So we're very glad to have him at a late time zone for him in Australia. His family has let him out to come and play with us. He's had over 45 years of success in the IT industry, along the lines of driving strategic initiatives and ICT improvements, in particular with ITIL in mind. Been with Microsoft's MVP program since 2009. So I'm not going to say he's old, but he's been in there for a while. Recently nominated Microsoft Partners Seller, TSSP. I'll leave that up to Alessandro to explain that on what his blog. If you need more information of what that includes and what that entails, please do follow him on his blog. He works for Redify as a national manager for platform solutions and leading major cloud projects in Australia. Obviously, I didn't miss anything. But if I did, besides the fact that Alessandro is a really great guy to talk to and knows his stuff, I would recommend, if you'd like to get in contact with him, let us know and we can always arrange that as well. Keep in mind, he does work in Australian time zones. Are you there, Alessandro? Have I missed anything?
Thank you, Justin. I actually love how you actually spell my surname. That is incredible. Thanks.
My apologies, sir.
No, actually, it's good. And thanks for not telling that I'm old. I actually feel that I'm old. When I have to write that I'm actually 20-something years just in ICT, it really makes me feel that I'm too old. It's unbelievable. I actually know some of the attendees, which is good. I have actually one of my friends, he's on the call as well, Emilio, he's from Brazil. That's cool. We used to participate in talking events together. So thanks for attending.
So he's got some tips and tricks for you just in case we get this one wrong. That's good.
Yeah, definitely. So I think to start this conversation, I think what I want to talk about is a little bit about the business and IT alignment when it comes to requirements, how we should plan and design the solution. It's very important. People don't just think about this today. And it's incredible what I see when going to customers. Talk about capacity planning as well. How can we automate what we actually deploy, and change management. So I think that's the points I would like to discuss today. If anyone wants to actually raise, as Justin was talking about, raise their hands and ask something else, happy to discuss. When it comes to planning, one of the things that comes to hand when talking with line of business managers most of the time is how you actually why you moving to the cloud, why you actually implement. And it doesn't matter if it's private cloud, public cloud, or hybrid. It's actually what's the main reason when we're talking is, hey, we want to instead of working on CapEx, we want to work on OpEx model. It means I don't want to spend money on infrastructure. I just want to pay as you go, pay for what I'm using. I think that's a reasonable way to think about cloud. But there are other things to think about. How about elasticity? How about time to market? I think that's very important nowadays when we have business that have competitors out there, and time to market is very important. So that's what I think when we're talking business and IT, we need to consider those talking. Not only, okay, it's just good for your IT department, but what about your business? Moving to the cloud, it doesn't matter private, public, or whatever, which cloud you invest, it is actually going to help your business better. So that's the thing we need to ask when talking about cloud. One other is about capacity. I think cloud it's really good about helping with that, as you can. It's like, as an example, I had a customer a couple of years ago, and he had to deploy a couple of hosts and virtual machines by October, because he was targeting December. So between let's say April to October, everything was, a lot of hosts were shut down. But when it comes to October, he had to fire up 30, 40 hosts, update all these hosts with the change he made to the application in order to get ready for Christmas. And that was incredible when I actually talked with him and said, look, you have a lot of trouble because you actually update your application during the year, but when it comes to October, you actually need to fire up those hosts. Wouldn't it be better if you adopt a cloud solution where you can actually, hey, I need to understand my capacity. If my capacity is actually increasing, I just fire up hosts on a cloud provider, or I need to understand better how I'm actually working with my capacity planning, because he was just firing up the hosts without actually understanding if you actually going to need those. So it's very important. As well as unifying the resources, the processes, and maintain the system availability. That's all tied all together. The other thing to talk about and to think is, how can you think about the utilization of what you have today? Are you really utilizing the whole capacity of your infrastructure today? How can you measure that one? So that are some of the things you should be thinking about when think about your cloud. How can I measure what I have today?
Yeah, so Alessandro, at that stage, would you say it's incredibly important to do really good planning from both business and IT sides? Because in your example, you're mentioning, a good IT look at it and the impact it would have to the business. You brought that into there. Do you have experience with the questions you're showing right now, how that formulates conversations within companies today?
Yeah, that definitely. I think that's one of the examples I just gave about that company. When I came out to talk with them, this was 2 years ago, and it was incredible understanding that they had no planning. The planning was, when it comes to October, we need to fire up 20 to 30 hosts without actually understanding anything about if they actually found any capacity issues, if they were at the maximum utilization. They actually just fire up those hosts with the intention of not having any issues when it comes to Christmas, because they're actually online store. So that is the thing that you need to prepare to talk with your business and customer is there a better way for you to actually plan, or for you to understand your capacity other than just, firing up a lot of servers, because that will involve cost. You actually have to maintain a lot of infrastructure without actually not understanding if you need that. You just can't have that amount of machines there for 2 or 3 years sitting on the ground without actually understanding if you really need that. So capacity planning is really important. You need to understand what you have. And that's one of the conversations you need to bring when talking with business is about understanding their business. That's the first thing you need to understand. You need to understand what they do as a business so you can actually plan your implementation.
Yeah. And strange enough, from the experiences I have with a lot of customers we come into, I can back that up, is that there is what I've noticed with the planning side, there is a very hefty IT plan of how to roll out the servers and how to roll up the hosts and all of the infrastructure that's needed for it. But sometimes some of the questions we challenge them with is, with Savision at least, is because we do sort of bring the business and IT departments together in a lot of rooms, and being able to make them visually show that to people is why and how is very important. Not can you do it and how much you can do it by and is it possible, but actually why are you doing it? What's the driving decision behind it, which sometimes I've noticed does miss out of a lot of good IT plans. Because IT people or infrastructure people are very aimed at making it happen, which is a daily job for them. Just for the audience, we are putting all of these questions, these valuable questions that Alessandro has put together in the slide, we're putting them into a poll so that you can also apply your answers, which we will use in our notes at the end and place them on our website for that.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm going to show at the end of this is actually survey by Gartner where it shows, and actually it's quite common, also WPC last month and APC last week, and now everyone is just quite common understanding that the decision about investing in IT used to be solely by the IT manager or within the IT department. Today is actually more business. So if you go and talk with IT, the budget is much less than if you actually go and talk with the business, because they actually understand what they want, and it's easy for them to say, hey, this is that's what my business needs. Can you help me with that? It's different from IT where you go there and they say, I need a server, or I need to I need to move my machine to the cloud. I need to migrate my email to the cloud. What actually business requirement that's going to fulfill? You're just migrating. Why are you migrating? So that's the question that we need to ask the business.
So it's interesting, is I had a conversation 2 weeks ago with a customer, IT manager, who had been given, it's a very fast-growing company, and the IT manager had been given the entire IT budget for the business to spend in a year. And he actually pulled me aside and he says, I really hate that they did that to me. I said, why is that? Well, because I want them to realize that it's not just me going out and buying IT resources for them whenever they need it or want it or have it, but it also has to have something to do with their business, has to do something with their application, has to do something with their daily lives. I've got a SharePoint webpage that everyone needs to access that we use for everything, for all their paperwork, for sick days and all that. And the business is asking me to go and spend a lot of money on making sure that runs, but they're not helping me get people adopted into it. So actually what he said was, I prefer it if the business controlled the budget and they gave me money, that I had a tiny budget, and when they asked for a new virtualized server, they had to pay for it. So they understood exactly why they're asking for it. Not how to actually run one up and where it needs to be in cloud, but what the impact is to the business or helping them dig in. And I do agree with you. I think that, and the Gartner reports and a lot of other webinars and research companies are pouring money into it. I think a lot of companies are starting to realize that it's not IT as infrastructure anymore, but it's also service delivery, which is becoming major.
Yeah. I had a meeting with an IT manager 2 weeks ago, and I actually was surprised because he actually came to me and said, you know what, I need your help, Alessandro, because I think my team needs to help the business instead of thinking on setting up a virtual machine or understanding if the machine is running okay. I don't care about this. I think they should be helping the business instead of looking after OS or looking after log on a machine. I need help with that. I don't want to be there deploying virtual machines or deploying a physical server. I think if you come here and help me and help my team, my IT team, to help the business, that's what I need. That was good coming from an IT manager.
Yeah, so obviously he understood the planning part and what the end goal was, which is a
Yeah.
vital part of planning. This is probably a good time for me to go to the next slide then.
Yeah, yeah. So from a planning and design, I think that's where you should spend a lot of time. We're running some projects here, and it's incredible that we actually now spend about, I would say, 8 to 10 days doing the assessment phase first, like a discovery. We go to the business, we run some workshops with customers, we understand what they have, and then after that we come to a plan and design. So we really going a little bit further on this planning exercise and try to understand the business requirements, what the business needs, and what the actual customer running. Do I actually really need to migrate a specific workload to the cloud? Does that workload migration would impact on the business? Will impact on the end users? Will have any benefit of migrating that particular workload to the cloud? What's the benefit to the business? That's the question that we work on now in doing this 2 weeks engagement first, which is discovery planning, and then after that we come with a report and design. Say, look, this is what we found on your business, and this is what we think you should be doing, and then we go for the design exercise. And then after that, after designing the solution to the customer, that's where I think you should, okay, during the design, I found that I need to do A, B, and C activities. You also need to include 2 things that people don't think about. One is training. It's very important to include training, and people don't realize that, but you really need to include training. And security, that is another thing very important as well. I see many forgetting about that. Cloud is secure as you think about your security. If you forgot about that, then you're in trouble. And you can end up like Hudson, and you can end up like other issues that we see. So can we go to the next slide? Or if anyone wants to add anything? You want to add anything, Justin?
No, I conform with everything that you say on there. I think security, there are a lot of questions that get risen up, where if if a bit of time is spent actually understanding where you want to go. I think I skipped the slide, sorry. Understanding where you want to go and putting that in a guideline, and how you guys go in and assess everything that's currently in there. I think a lot of IT companies are trying to do that themselves within their internal infrastructure side. One of the points I'd like to put on is it's always good to ask for an external help. Someone with fresh eyes who's got a little bit more experience in other companies or environments, to come in and ask them, does this plan look sound? Always ask the business as well, because the business isn't stuck in daily IT routines or daily worries about security like that. So they could bring a different need for them, where they want more flexibility and are less worried about security.
Yeah, I agree with that. Bringing someone external, and I think bringing someone external to participate on the discovery and the planning is important for another big reason. It's because he, as a consultant, he will be exposed to a different kind of environments, possibly to similar industry, so can actually bring some of his experience to that, something that the company won't have.
Yeah, I agree with that, yeah.
So from a deployment, I think after you did all the design and planning, you need to understand that cloud, it's an evolution. So Microsoft or AWS or whoever the cloud you decide to go, you just need to think that it's an evolution. It releases functionality and features every single day. So you need to make sure that you keep enhancing your your solution. And it's not only about public cloud, on private cloud as well. Let's think about System Center, for example, as a software to manage the private cloud. Microsoft decides, instead of having these big cycles of updates, now it releases updates every month with a lot of small new features. So it's very important that you keep on top of those. That's one of the of my takeaways from this is to keep looking, because once implemented, it's not okay. I just implemented my cloud and that's it. No, you actually need to keep always improving. Migrate the old workloads. I still have customers running Windows 2003. That's incredible. And I actually have one customer running Windows NT. I found the other day. I was speaking with him and I couldn't understand how he would be running a Windows NT. So that not only increased the risks, but actually, I don't know. It doesn't sound quite well planned. So as an IT manager for that company, I'll be well concerned. First, because of security, no more patches, risk. The machine could stop anytime. It's running on an old machine. So all those concerns that I'll be raising, and I should be taking that into account when talking with the customer as well. You really need to keep that in mind. So let's go to the next slide. So then it comes to capacity planning. So we want to have a go at this one, Justin.
Yeah, not a problem. So as you can see, there are some scenarios that a lot of customers come to, because when they come to planning it out, one of the big question marks comes in is, can I handle the workload or the capacity load of the current demands of the business services that we support? Question number one. So a lot of companies that run data centers right now are struggling that when they go into virtual resources is just being able to keep track of what they're doing. As Alessandro said, the challenge from an IT department is not necessarily, how fast can you spin up a virtual resource, but sometimes you need to ask, is this what I should be doing? What's the impact of me spinning up more resources or more virtual machines on this host to potentially other projects or other applications running in the environment? It speaks a little bit to change management, but on a capacity side, are there other applications that are not using capacity? Is there, memory disk space processes that I can recover? A lot of companies feel that they hit a certain level, or a lot of IT infrastructure companies feel that they hit a certain level and then need to start looking for extra resources. And, Microsoft does a really good job of marketing Azure. Azure is incredibly good at it. Keep in mind that when you move anything into Azure, you do start going blind on a lot of these questions instantly, and that is, how hosting companies will work, because it's their job to make sure that the capacity is available for you.
Yeah, that is actually a conversation I had with your RD last week, is when we are actually going to have actually looking into Azure as well. I actually agree with you. It's something that's very important. It's understanding, okay, it's what's the impact that I will have if I actually delay a project because I don't have the resource, or what the impact would be to other projects if I have to give more resource to a particular one, and then change a little bit the small ones for them to run on a slow capacity or slow machine. Yeah, that's something that I would like to see as well, if on a public cloud.
Yeah, no, totally agree. I think the performance measures, and a lot of people tend to go to Azure because they don't have to worry about that. What I've seen in a lot of enterprise-like customers that we have is that there is someone put in charge of the virtual platform within a company, and there's a different department that's put in charge of making sure that it runs and the performance matrices are done. And a lot of the times, those guys, I'm not going to say it's bad business, but they don't talk to each other on a good level. We get pulled in, strangely enough, through our Cloud Reporter tool by a lot of Hyper-V and a lot of VMware users that have a tool that works for them but doesn't give them the information they need on a platform basis or fabric basis. It gives them purely on their hosts. And then they look to the IT department to, provide more reports, particularly with the last couple of questions where you actually see, where the Hyper-V guy is being charged with making sure there are enough resources, but doesn't even know what half of the applications are that are running on there and if they're still working. So who do they go to? They go to the infrastructure, the service delivery teams, and they try and find it out together. That's a good sign. The bad sign is that they don't usually talk the same language. And that's where Azure comes in and says, or hosting companies will come in and say, look, don't worry too much about this. We can handle whatever capacity you want. Now, the challenge right now is to move a lot of your applications, your capacity over into Azure in a lot of companies. And, we can speak to that. What I foresee as another challenge that will come up in the future is if we rapidly move everything across and we haven't planned correctly for it, we will lose control and the costs will skyrocket. Not necessarily because Azure it will go up in price. No, it'll be your consumption of virtual resources, which are made easier and easier through all of the new features that are added for someone to spin up a portal. That's where tools like Service Manager and Ops Manager can come in and start making, visibility and awareness to all of the multiple departments within a company instead of jeopardizing that visibility. And a lot of
two things that I see as well is the storage and network team, actually a separated team from the person that looks after the virtualization. Another example that I see in one customer in particular was the Hyper-V team was like another team was not part of the VMware team. They actually have the two hypervisors running by two different teams. It really doesn't make sense when you talk about capacity planning and cost reductions and maximize the investment on what you have, especially now that you have a lot of tools that you can, like System Center, for example, and with Savision, we can actually have from one tool understanding the capacity planning of the hybrid hypervisors. That's really cool. And unfortunately, we still have teams that play separate roles. It doesn't make any sense.
I think that's something that speaks something with the old structure of how enterprises work, but hosting companies are coming in and shaking that up as well these days, which I think is a great maneuver. A lot of the other questions that come up from the old thinking is, as we've got here in capacity planning, how well can you ensure an optimal user experience in the cloud? That's a challenge internally within a company as well as externally, and that's where a lot of people will look at Azure when they're not seeing their problems or not being able to handle the problems there. Cloud is about effective abstraction and resource sharing, however, not at the expense of performance. The objective is to determine how much availability is desired from the solution and how much RPO is to be sustained. So it's not about if there's a problem, I need to throw more money and go and get resources, the old school thinking. It's also about being able to manage and see those performances and being able to report on them, which a lot of companies see as an advanced, mature IT level. And we have another great blog article about how mature is your IT based on Gartner reporting, so I won't dive too much into that. But it's about the level of maturity that people see it. And I think Azure is part of an answer that a lot of people hope for, or cloud hosting is a part of an answer a lot of people hope for. When they move to it, they still, miss that one vital thing, which is being able to report on it and visualize it. Now, this is where I'll talk a little bit about Cloud Reporter. That is one of our vision that sits within private clouds, within an Ops Manager installation, and can talk to Hyper-V and VMware, and can pull the needed information and the resources from your virtualized fabric and allow you to provide, or allow an IT infrastructure team to provide the business or the Hyper-V user or the external parties or whatever with a forecast report. Something that a lot of people struggle with and hope that Azure will bring them. Now, I know Microsoft is doing some great stuff with OMS and doing some great reporting. on a real-time effect state, but the forecasting is still left untouched because a lot of companies see that as a maturity level that they have to achieve. What we try to achieve with our Cloud Reporter is bring that to you today. There's, from a technical level, this just gathers information from what's already existing within your environment, from the tools that you're currently enabled to use through the Microsoft Package System Centerware package and Hyper-V and VMware packages, and provide a simple overview. Now, this is just a screenshot. I won't go too much into it because we don't have enough time for that one at this stage. And I know Alessandro will get bored if I do a product pitch. If you're interested in it, please reach out to us and we can go into more detail on what Cloud Reporter can do for you and your own environment. We also have evaluation copies that people can get hold of and test and put on their environment. It's a plug-and-play management pack directed to your tool, and you get those components out of it.
Yep.
Alessandro?
So,
potentially one thing to initiate the conversation, one of the reports we actually do in there is a what-if scenario. And
sorry, I forgot to mention about that. That is actually one of the good things that I like about the tool, is understanding what if, that's one of the questions I was raising, like what happens if I had a project that's coming up from a business to start, but there is no resource. My question would be, okay, I have some other workload running. What if I shut down some of the workloads? Or what happens if I just change some of the, decrease the number of processes or decrease the resources by 25%? What's actually going to happen with those workloads? And I really like that, to play with that on a scenario that actually it does not affect anything. It's not actually affecting the production. It's just what if. And that's really cool.
Yeah, it's enabling you to test your plan and to test what's going on and the impact. It speaks a little bit also to change management, which we'll touch on a little bit later. But the ability to break things and test things in your environment without actually breaking them, that is a huge driving factor with a lot of planning steps that we've noticed from customers as well. We actually built that feature in due to a customer request who wanted that, because he was a bit worried that he had so many servers and didn't particularly know what was going on if he did have to run up a new one or anyone like that. One of the other requests we had thrown in was a powered off virtual machine. So when we talk about private clouds, this doesn't become a huge thing in Azure, but I would personally love to see it in Azure eventually. But to be honest, it questions how they will charge money from a hosting company point of view, is the ability to see where you can actually win back some of your virtual resources if a host is not used correctly, or a host is powered off for 6 months out of the year, or the host is sitting in a test environment that no one uses anymore, or that project's been cancelled and no one's informed in IT. It's good from a monitoring point of view to be aware that there are resources that are being not used correctly, that you could potentially switch off and win processes or win space back from capacity back. Incredibly important on a private cloud, and less important when it goes to Azure because of the way that they charge, but I'd love to see them do that as well, to enable users to actually be aware of projects that they could win back from.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah. Alessandro, we're getting a couple of questions coming in, so potentially we'll just take a quick pause and read through the questions. Let me read this one out. So, is there a capacity planning tool to measure an in-house workload to move over cloud?
So, there is some tools that can actually help you understand your current and assess your current workloads. I would say Map tool from Microsoft. It's a really good tool. I would say normally you should be running that for a week or two, just to make sure you actually capture what is running on your environment. Don't think you're running that for half an hour or one day that you'll capture everything. So make sure you really leave the tool running there for a couple of days. I normally recommend that running for 2 weeks, so that makes sure that you capture everything. So just remember, we have, for example, HR running at the end of the month. We have some marketing sending some campaigns, or we have some people playing with some other tools, or engineering working on a tender, or needs to send something. So the workload varies between days. So make sure you run that to capture during a couple of weeks, 1 2 weeks. On a daily basis, I think from a private cloud, I really think the Savision and operating with operations manager is the best tool you have. Not only will give you information about your capacity planning, but will give you something very important from SLA perspective. It's actually a topic I'm going to talk from a monitoring. Just if you can actually move to the next slide. That's the next one.
I had my screen open because I did have something to add on to that questioning from it. As you mentioned, it's good to be aware over a longer period of time when migrating any of the cloud what your impact is. So yeah, you have mentioned that we work with that. So cloud reporters are constantly working in the background based per virtual host, and it links into our other solution, Live Maps, which allows you to map your services and objects out there. What we are potentially doing in the near future is combining them even further so that you can actually see what hosts and what resources are running versus which application or which line of business service is reliant on them. So that would be one. But yeah.
That's going to be great.
Yeah. So hopefully that question was answered. Alessandro, you wanted me to be on the next slide. We have one more question, but let me know.
Please, let's go to the question. Yes.
So I'll go back a slide quickly. Is any cloud connected tools available to move workload from private OpenStack cloud to public Azure cloud out there? I'm aware of a lot of third parties that make a lot of money doing that, so they are.
I agree. There is actually, I think there are 4 or 5 tools that can actually help you migrate from any source to Azure or to AWS. The one that I'm actually playing now is the Microsoft ASR, but for that one, you can migrate from physical, from VMware, from AWS, and from Hyper-V to Azure. You can actually migrate from Azure to AWS and vice versa using the same tool. Incredible, coming from Microsoft, but the tool actually allows you to migrate from Azure to AWS and vice versa. There is another tool from DoubleTake. I'm not aware if DoubleTake can help you migrate from OpenStack. Actually, really good question. I have to take that online. If you can just reach me out on my Twitter, I'll find out that answer for you from an OpenStack perspective. That's actually a really great question.
Yeah, I do know the tool you're talking about from DoubleTake. They do advertise they can, and I know it's one of their at least goals to do it. But to be honest, I can't answer that one as well. So yeah, if you can reach out to Alessandro separately, or you can reach out to us and we can introduce you to DoubleTake on that to answer your question there, sir. From a migration point of view, in Ops Manager, I know there is a lot of questions of people once they migrate their hosts and their computers or whatever they're running over there, can they keep tracking that on a daily basis? So I will speak out. It's a slightly different one. Obviously, that speaks a little bit out to our Live Map solution, which allows you to track where your hosts and computers are moving, whether they're on site or in the cloud. Obviously, you will still need to have your Ops Manager talk to your cloud components, and I'm sure Microsoft will do a good job of communicating. Those are the questions. So on to the next slide, Alessandro.
Yeah, let's go to the next one, then we go back to this one. Let's go to the monitoring one first, because that actually, the next one, yeah. So actually, because you just mentioned about that, if you need to make sure that even if you migrate to the cloud, to the public cloud, you really need to make sure that you monitor. And when I say monitor, I really mean it. I'll give you something that happened with me 2 to 3 years ago. I was on a migration project running for a big enterprise company, and was Friday about 4 p.m. and we left a machine running to capture some logs during the weekend. So by Monday, when we arrived at site, so the actually host itself was not working, was stopped, and it actually interfering in other business applications. So the business came to us and asking what happens, what have we done to actually stop some of the applications, and that actually caused some issues for the business. So I went there to investigate what the issue was. So I actually found that the issue was one of the machines were running with the logs, and what happens with the virtual machine is actually went too big, and there was not enough space. So incredible. I also found that by 4 p.m., by the time I left, 4 p.m. on Friday, by the time I left the customer, the administrator got the message say, hey, your host is approaching physical, you need to increase or you need to do something with your space because you not have much space. I think it was 20%, something like this. So I went to talk with the IT administrator that was looking after the operations manager. And he just said, yeah, I received so many messages from operations manager. I wasn't going to look after that one. And it was 4 p.m. weekend. Who looks after this? I said, look, this is really bad because you actually have the tool to help you, but because you have no idea how to fully utilize the tool, you just, set up the tool as a next finish. And you now risk to lose your job because I actually need to report to the business that you actually got the message saying that you were notified about the issue, you just didn't care. So, and trust me, that happens a lot. That's why I keep saying that monitoring tools, it really generates a lot of noise. People don't understand this. People actually install all the management packs that they can. They actually don't work on filtering. And then the business comes and say, what's our SLA? They actually have no idea how to get this information to the business.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. That scenario, I know a lot of people laugh at that scenario. That actually does happen daily. we feel that type of scenario as well from our side. One thing we've noticed is that, as you said, it's very easy to deploy management packs into Ops Manager or any monitoring tool at that stage and get the information. That's not the challenge these days. It's what you do with the information afterwards to enable your business to be have a level of continuity and be aware of what's going on. In your example, for example, that person literally missed what could be on a Monday morning at 8 o'clock, a very important problem, just because he was getting too much noise because the business hadn't thought about how to address the information that's in Ops Manager. As you said, it can get very noisy very fast.
It does. One of the things I keep fighting at the System Center team when I go to Redmond, I keep saying this, you guys make the software so easy to install the management packs that now the person goes to operations manager and type, for example, Exchange or SQL, and then every single piece of management pack that comes out of that, he just select and install. I remember the old days where we actually had to go to Pinpoint, understand what the management pack does, and then install it manually. That was just the best day ever because it was really conscious. You're going to do what you're reading. You actually was reading the documentation prior to installing the management pack. Now we go to the console, just type anything, select install. And it's funny, the other day I was looking at a customer, he was showing me, I asked him which management packs he had. He actually had all the SQL management packs installed. Even SQL 2005, incredible, he only had SQL 2012. Yeah. But he had SQL 2005, SQL 2008, SQL 2008 R2 management pack installed without actually having the workload.
Yeah, and the bad news is that does impact Ops Manager in the end.
It does. And then what happens, people start saying, Operations Manager doesn't help because it's too much noise. Let's stop working with that. Or worse, you really get one alert that actually you need to pay attention, you just don't because it's too much.
Yeah, so for those of you who are not aware of Savision Live Maps Unity, that's where we will come and definitely help you out with that. It's about business service management and planning those business services. So as Alessandro said, not only being aware of what's in your environment, i.e. you don't have 2005 needs for management packs, but also being aware of taking the messages and being able to use those management pack informations not only as an alert noise machine, but actually as a visual for your entire environment. What you can see on the screen is a small sampling of what Live Maps will do for you. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but one of the key factors that we do when it comes to proper managing of your services is you then enable the ability to do change management. And we've touched a little bit about our planning phases on that, but not only knowing that your server is up and running, but knowing even if the host that is up and running on it, or the computer is running on it, or the router or switch that's running there, if they go down, what is the impact? So let's go back to Alexander's example. That disk full is going up. Right now, it's not a major impact because that one service that relies on it is, very important. What if that disk full was on the host, and that host was, running your company's major website or running your company's CRM system or payroll, and that disk full on the one server would stop the host from functioning? How would you be able to know that, on Monday no one can get paid because the CRM system and the payroll system and the web page, they're all going down just because the host is filled up? That's going to cost a lot of money. Having that ability to control the changes and seeing what the impact is massive. And a lot of companies are not tapping into what Ops Manager can do because they're faced with the flood of alerts. What we do within Live Maps, I won't dive into the feature, but if you are interested, come talk to us. We map out the objects into each service, and with a click of a button, you can find out which services are reliant on whatever object you're looking at, so your host or your server or your router. Now, that also means that we can model the services within Ops Manager and pump them through into Service Manager, which allows you to fully populate your service maps, which speaks to your planning. So at the end, you will have the end result, being able to know what the impacts are of any changes within your environment. That allows your decision makers to invest in cloud solutions when they know a disk full is going to run out on their most important business services. That's about continuity. They're not too worried about, non-production or testing, but it's a collective decision, and right now, a lot of people are making those decisions without having all of the facts, because the poor infrastructure person charged with monitoring everything can't deliver reports on the usage of the objects that are in there. Or he can, he's just suffering with it right now. And that's where a lot of customers come to us to help with those. At that stage, unfortunately, and that's what we're trying to drive home with this webinar, your planning has failed. We can help you and we can put you back on track, but it's important to understand what the end goal is. And the end goal is that every person is, in a Dutch terminology, on the same ship, pointing the same way, working together to get the ship home in the end.
Yep. Yeah. As this slide is talking about, that's the takeaway I would like to take home is think about the exponential growth of data that we have today, the many devices that everyone has access today. I see many times, like, look at myself, I have 3 devices, like 2 mobiles, one tablet, and it's happening with lots of customers. Many more have 2, 3 devices. So it's a big explosion of devices, data. You need to make sure that you help your customer and help your business to control those devices, to control where the data is, because you have so many devices. You need to make sure that the data is available, because the most important asset for your company is the data. So you need to make sure that it's available wherever the business needs and wherever the end user needs. And as I said, you need to make sure that when you're talking with customers, you really need to reach out the lines of business, because those decision makers now, they have more power than the IT manager. And if you really are to consulting, and if you think about this, you really need to reach out the head of HR, the CMO, the GMs. Those are the guys that actually has more to tell you than the IT manager.
Yeah, I second that, because when we talk to our customers, a lot of our engagements are, they're suffering with getting the information out to decision makers or even help desk people to find out what it is. But when we ask them, so what are you monitoring with Scrum? Which services are you monitoring? Strangely enough, a lot of the IT managers don't know that. It's a fair call, because they're monitoring servers and they're monitoring infrastructure in Azure. What we have noticed is, a lot of other companies or a lot of other people within a company, so the business units, they know what applications need to be running, or they know roughly what they want to have running, and they can give you a better picture of your IT than, strange enough, the IT department. That's a huge change when we go to hosting companies, because keep in mind the relationship between the hosting companies, they are going to talk to the business, and they're going to find out what the business needs, because they're responsible to the business because they're getting paid by them. Same as an IT department within a company, just sometimes they tend to forget that it's about delivery and not about how fast can you run up a server in Azure, because I really need one. Well, sort of thing. You did mention a Gartner report. I think that's
I think it's the last slide. Yeah, that's actually a really good report. It's saying who should you be engaging if you want to understand a little bit about your buying process for your customer. As you can see, from professional services and from a customer device, the C level, which the blue one, it's where it should be targeting sales, marketing, line of business, all those that you really need to be exploring.
So let's put that into a technical level. When you start using Ops Manager and you start presenting information to people, those are the same people you need to get on board to do the information. Without them, Ops Manager will just be a noise machine. If you talk to the functional team lead, the blue parts and the internal IT departments, and get them on board, then your reports will make sense. It'll be adopted, and Ops Manager will be secured within the company, and the IT department can then very easily start looking at, have I got everyone on the application layer? Have I got everyone in, providing a service to them? Do we even need to go to outsourced components? A lot of the decision making on the outsourced stuff, you can see other people that are struggling with that. We've got 2 minutes before you need to drop off for your next one, Alessandro. Thanks very much for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Please contact Alessandro through his blog, on his Twitter account, or you can follow us on our blog, our webpage, our Twitter account. Drop us an email, have us on LinkedIn.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.